Hey everyone, this is Mike. Very quickly before I get into the video, a spoiler warning for those that have not finished the patch 5.3 storyline just yet. I'm going to be showcasing some gameplay of the new Extreme Primal from patch 5.3 that ties into the main storyline of this patch as well. So if you haven't seen it yet, if you haven't finished the quests, then this is your spoiler warning to get out. Now, another thing I have to mention as well is that I am by no stretch of the imagination a healer main or a great healer player. I have cleared Extreme Primals, I have cleared Savage Raids on all of the healers, but I'm not a very proficient player in it. So all of the opinions and thoughts I'm going to be bringing to this video are going to be coming from a more casual / mid-core healer perspective, rather than somebody that has really optimized all of the job, so to speak. So yeah, with all of that out of the way, let's go into the changes to Astrologian. So in this patch they've made two major changes to Astrologian as well as some minor ones as well. So we'll talk about the major changes first. First of all, their healing management has been changed quite substantially. So what they have done is they have lowered the MP cost of a bunch of different abilities. Helios, Benefic 2, Aspected Benefic, Aspected Helios and Combust 2 have all had their MP cost reduced. On top of this, they have made it so that every time that you draw a card, you are going to be restoring 8% of your maximum MP, and that translates to 800 MP per card drawn, both from just the draw ability as well as from sleeve draw. This is a change that I've been wanting to happen to Astrologian for a very long time now, and I'm really glad that they have finally implemented it. Last but not least, when it comes down to MP changes, Lightspeed has lost its MP cost reduction effect. Prior to this patch, whenever you would use Lightspeed, all of your MP costs would be reduced by 50%. Right now, it doesn't do that anymore, which I think is actually a good thing, which I'll talk about in just a second. Then some minor changes that they have done is to Horoscope. Whenever you apply this effect, it will trigger the heal when it runs out of time. So prior to this, if you would have Horoscope active and you would not actively activate it yourself, it would just disappear and not do the heal. Right now, when the timer expires, it'll just automatically do the heal for you, which is really good. It's kind of the same as how XCOG works for Scholar. And then when in Neutral Sect, while you're executing it whilst you're under the effect of Nocturnal Sect, this is the shield stance, the healing over time effects of Aspected Benefic and Aspected Helios can now be stacked with this Neutral Sect regens. I believe this only affects you when you are playing in a double Astro scenario, but I don't really think that happens all that often, so I'm not quite sure if this change is really going to change all that much. Now, the second major change is to sleeve draw. This one is going to be a nerf to Astrologian's raid DPS, because instead of drawing 3 cards like you did before, you are now going to be only drawing 1 card. But this 1 card is going to have a different seal than the ones that you already have. And this makes it so that in the opener, you can now guarantee a 3 stacked divination a whole lot easier. Because what you do is you draw a card pre-pull 30 seconds before you start to pull. Then you play it immediately, you draw a new card, and if you're only caring about your divination here, then you just redraw until you get a new seal that you don't have yet, you play it, and then when you do a sleeve draw, it is automatically going to give you that 1 seal that you are missing. So when it comes down to quality of life of getting a 3-stacked divination, this is a really good change. When it comes down to wanting to play a lot of cards and making your raid DPS good, or better than it is right now, then this is going to be quite the nerf to that, because every 3 minutes you are going to be playing 2 less cards. It also affects the opener in quite a substantial way as well, because what you would do prior to this, and this is paraphrasing from my statics healer, as I said, I am not a healer main, I am not an Ast main by any stretch of the imagination, but she is, and she talked about it a little bit when we saw these changes. Prior to this, you would often play your weaker cards on other players, like for example on the Gunbreaker or something if they were to do a first GCD No Mercy. Or you would be able to prepare your divination on those weaker players in your party, and then once the divination went out, once the other jobs would go into their burst phases, because more often than not there is a slight wind up to go into the burst phase, like for example a samurai getting their attack speed and their damage buff, a ninja winding up for their trick attack, a summoner going through the application of their dots to then summon Bahamut, those kind of things, they would save the stronger cards like a Lord or a Lady for when those burst windows would happen. So meaning that right now you only have 3 cards, means that you're going to be missing 2 of them. You can't play Lords, you can't play Ladies, and you're also playing all 3 of your cards immediately at the start of the fight so that you can get the divination out as soon as possible, meaning that you will not be hitting the actual burst windows of the jobs fully anymore like you would before, because by the time that they reach their burst window, the half of the card's duration might have already ran out. So it's quite a significant decrease in raid DPS for Astrologian when it comes down to the sleeve draw change, but it is a very big quality of life change for guaranteeing that 3 stacked divination. And coming from someone like me that plays Astrologian very casually, that has not optimized anything at all, I do have to say that this change feels pretty good when it comes down to guaranteeing the divination. Again, if you don't care about hitting the like optimal timings for when you give cards and all of that, of course. Going over the course of a whole fight, you'll still be able to hit those windows as you would before, but because you draw less cards, you're going to be providing less raid DPS for the party, which in the long run probably is not a bad thing because Astrologian is very strong at the moment, so seeing them get a little bit of a DPS nerf when it comes down to their raid DPS contribution, which was so incredibly high, is probably not too bad of a thing. Of course, I haven't looked at all of the numbers, I'm not quite sure how many people have been doing log runs to see how much of a DPS difference this change actually is, but it is just going to be a flat out nerf. Now, when it comes down to everything else, disregarding how big of a DPS nerf this sleeve draw is, what do I think of all of the other changes all together from the way Astrologian plays right now? Because I actually played it a fair bit in the new Extreme Primal when I was farming it a little bit, getting some of my friends the clear of this Primal as well. I gotta say, they feel pretty good. So Lightspeed is something that prior to this change you would want to use on cooldown to make sure that you wouldn't run out of MP. And that would make it so that you would just use it on cooldown and maybe not have it for moments in the fight where you would want to use it for movement, because of course whenever you use Lightspeed, your cast times are getting reduced to pretty much 0 depending on what cast you're using. For example, Res does not go to 0, but most of your other abilities will get a 0 cast time, meaning that you have instant casts so you can move around as much as you want. You use Lightspeed in the opener so that you can double weave all of your card drawing and playing together with whatever else you might want to use during your opener. But then when it comes down to the rest of the fight, you always wanted to use it to make sure you wouldn't run dry on MP. Right now you can save it for when you want to use it for movement instead, which I think is a really good change and which is how I think Lightspeed should have always been. The changes to the MP cost reduction and the fact that every time that you draw a card you now gain MP back has made it so that Ast's mana management has become incredibly good. Whenever I was doing the Extreme Primal, granted I am running way too much Piety because I don't have the best in slot for healer, but whenever we were running the new fights I was spamming heals way too much because maybe my co-healer wasn't as good or as experienced in the fights. We were playing it super safe. People were dying left and right. I sometimes did 2 or 3 reses back to back and I never ran into any mana issues whatsoever, so it felt really good to play. Of course, as I said, I had way too much Piety on my Astrologian, but if you were to take this into a more optimal scenario where you're playing Savage with people that know what they're doing, you're not having to heal as much, you're not having to res as much, then you shouldn't run into the same mana issues that you had before this patch. So when it comes down to mana, Astrologian is pretty much being fixed at this point. And it's also really cool how they've incorporated the mana system in the card system, because it makes it so that drawing those cards is not only going to be beneficial for your party in the fact that you provide raid DPS to them, but it is also going to be tied together with your own personal mana management, making it so that it's beneficial both for your party as well as for yourself, that you want to be drawing those cards, that you're more encouraged to draw those cards, which is a change, as I said, that I've been wanting to happen for a very long time. Change to horoscope is very nice because it's just some quality of life over there, so can't really complain about that at all. Then of course sleeve draw, for me personally it feels pretty alright because you can now guarantee getting those seals that you don't have yet, meaning that your card play is going to be kind of interesting as well from time to time. Because when you know sleeve draw is coming up, you only need one more seal, you can just spend that card that you draw right before it on a lord or a lady, for example, and then guarantee the other stack with the sleeve draw, which is quite nice. On the other hand, because you are drawing less cards, a lot of people that really enjoyed the card play aesthetic of Astrologian might be feeling a little bit bummed out because you are going to be playing a whole lot less cards. The fact that it is still 3 minutes is, I think, a little bit too long. Maybe they should reduce the cooldown of sleeve draw to like 2 minutes so that it lines up with your divination, because if I'm not mistaken, divination is 2 minutes as well. So if that would line up together, then you would always be able to guarantee that one extra seal that you might otherwise not have by trying to like redraw other cards, of course. So that would be the only real change that I would like to see happen to Astrologian, having the cooldown of sleeve draw reduced to 2 minutes so that it would line up with your divination. I feel like that would make the class a whole lot better, and then of course it also wouldn't feel as bad that you only draw 1 card from sleeve draw now instead of the 3 that you did before. But overall, I'm a pretty big fan of these changes. Of course, as I said, this is coming from a casual healer perspective. When it comes down to people that played Astrologian at a high-end level, for example, the sleeve draw changes will feel pretty bad, but of course all of the mana management changes are going to be good for anyone that played Astrologian, whatever level of play you might have been playing it at. So overall, I'm happy with the changes. We're definitely going to be playing some more Astrologian in the future, because I actually had a blast playing it a few days ago in the Extreme Primal. I had a really good time playing it, so I'm definitely going to be playing it some more in the future. But that's going to be it for me. I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my Patreons for supporting me, and I'll see you in the next one.